The little girl clung to her father's worn jacket with trembling hands as the courtroom doors opened, convinced this was the day they would lose everything they had left. Across the room, a young woman in an elegant navy suit stepped forward, surrounded by lawyers and executives who expected her to demand every dollar owed to her late mother's company. Instead, she quietly placed a faded envelope on the judge's desk and spoke words that stunned every person in the room. She had not come to collect a debt. She had come to repay one that her mother had carried in silence for nearly 20 years. Before we continue this emotional journey, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who believes in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances, and subscribe to our channel so you can become part of our growing community that celebrates stories capable of changing hearts. Graham Mercer had never imagined that life could become so painfully quiet. Years earlier, he had been a respected construction engineer with steady work, a cheerful wife named Clarissa, and a modest little house filled with laughter. Then illness arrived without warning. Clarissa battled a rare disease that slowly stole her strength until one bright spring morning she slipped away forever, leaving Graham alone with their 5-year-old daughter, Elodie. From that day forward, every sunrise became another promise that he would somehow keep moving for her, even when his own heart felt too exhausted to continue. Raising Elodie alone tested every piece of him. He accepted temporary jobs repairing schools, restoring old buildings, cleaning workshops, and driving delivery trucks whenever construction projects disappeared. Every paycheck disappeared almost immediately into rent, groceries, medicine, school supplies, and overdue utility bills. Yet Graham refused to let bitterness become part of his daughter's childhood. Every afternoon they shared sandwiches in the nearby park, invented stories about clouds drifting across the blue sky, and celebrated tiny victories as though they were grand holidays. To Elodie, her father was still the strongest man in the world, even if his boots were worn thin and his hands carried permanent scars from years of labor. Long before Graham's life unraveled, he had worked for a small manufacturing company owned by Margaret Ellison. Margaret was brilliant, ambitious, and determined to expand her family business into a national corporation. During one especially difficult financial crisis, payroll nearly collapsed after a disastrous investment. Employees feared bankruptcy, suppliers demanded immediate payment, and banks refused additional loans. Graham had quietly emptied the savings account that he and Clarissa had built for their future home and loaned every dollar to Margaret so workers could receive their salaries. He refused written contracts and accepted only a handwritten promise that she would repay him once the company recovered. Margaret cried with gratitude and swore she would never forget such extraordinary kindness. The business survived. Within several years it flourished beyond anyone's expectations. Then tragedy struck again. Graham lost contact with the company after moving away for Clarissa's medical treatments. Letters disappeared during relocations. Phone numbers changed. Margaret intended to repay the loan many times, but life moved relentlessly forward while opportunities slipped away. Before she could find Graham again, she developed heart failure. Her greatest regret remained locked inside an old cedar chest filled with personal journals, business records, and the faded envelope containing Graham's original handwritten agreement. Margaret's daughter, Celeste Ellison, inherited the corporation at only 29 years old. Newspapers admired her intelligence and fearless leadership. Investors praised her sharp decisions. Employees respected her discipline. Yet behind every accomplishment remained the impossible challenge of living beneath the enormous shadow of her mother's legacy. While organizing Margaret's belongings one sunny afternoon, Celeste discovered the forgotten journals. Page after page revealed stories her mother had never shared publicly. One entry described the desperate day Graham Mercer had sacrificed everything so hundreds of employees could continue feeding their families. Another entry confessed that Margaret had failed the one man who had saved her dream. Tucked inside the journal rested the original loan document, yellow with age but still perfectly readable. Celeste could barely finish reading before tears blurred the ink. Her mother had written one final request beneath the last entry. If Graham Mercer could ever be found, repay every dollar with gratitude, interest, and an apology too long delayed. Money alone could never erase the debt, but perhaps kindness could complete what time had interrupted. Finding Graham proved surprisingly difficult. Records showed countless temporary addresses, changing employers, and financial hardships. Eventually an investigator located him after discovering court filings connected to unpaid medical bills accumulated during Clarissa's illness. Graham faced foreclosure proceedings after falling behind on payments despite working endlessly. The hearing was scheduled only weeks away. Celeste immediately prepared repayment documents and instructed her legal team to calculate the full value of the original loan adjusted across 2 decades. The amount exceeded $2 million. Her executives questioned the decision, arguing there was no legal obligation because the debt had technically expired years earlier. Celeste listened calmly before explaining that integrity was never measured by legal deadlines. Her mother's conscience had carried this promise until her final breath. She intended to honor it completely. News spread quickly when people learned the Ellison Corporation would appear in court regarding Graham's property dispute. Reporters assumed the corporation planned to seize assets connected to old financial claims. Graham himself believed the same. Walking toward the courthouse beneath the bright morning sun, he held Elodie's small hand while silently preparing himself for humiliation. He expected another reminder that life rewarded power far more often than sacrifice. The courtroom filled with whispers as Celeste entered. Her confidence contrasted sharply with Graham's tired appearance. The judge reviewed documents while everyone anticipated confrontation. Instead, Celeste requested permission to submit additional evidence. She carried the faded envelope carefully, almost reverently, before explaining its history. Her voice remained steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm every sentence. She revealed that Graham had once rescued a struggling company by risking everything he owned. She admitted her mother never stopped searching for him. She acknowledged that although death had prevented Margaret from fulfilling her promise personally, her family still carried the responsibility. Then she announced the complete repayment, including accumulated interest and compensation reflecting decades of lost opportunity. The amount erased every debt Graham possessed several times over. Silence settled across the courtroom. Graham stared without understanding. Elodie looked between the adults, sensing something extraordinary had happened even though she could not grasp every detail. The judge removed his glasses, visibly moved by what he had witnessed. Even opposing attorneys lowered their heads respectfully. Graham tried to refuse the money. He insisted kindness should never become an investment expecting future rewards. He explained that he had helped Margaret simply because desperate people deserved compassion. Celeste smiled sadly. She answered that accepting repayment would not diminish the goodness behind his choice. Instead, it would allow one unfinished act of gratitude finally to reach its destination. Some promises deserved to arrive, no matter how many years had passed. Outside the courthouse, cameras surrounded them, expecting dramatic interviews about corporate generosity. Celeste declined every opportunity for publicity. She requested that reporters focus instead on the countless ordinary people who quietly help others without expecting recognition. Graham appreciated that deeply because his greatest fear had always been becoming someone else's inspirational headline while remaining painfully misunderstood. Life changed rapidly after that remarkable day. Graham paid every outstanding bill, repaired the neglected family home, and established an education fund ensuring Elodie would never have to abandon her dreams because of financial hardship. Yet wealth alone was never the greatest gift he received. For the first time since losing Clarissa, he felt seen. Someone had remembered his sacrifice. Someone had proven that goodness could survive across generations. Celeste found herself transformed as well. Leading a corporation no longer meant simply maximizing profits. She introduced emergency assistance programs for struggling employees, scholarships honoring acts of quiet compassion, and annual community projects supporting single parents rebuilding their lives after unimaginable loss. She insisted these initiatives remain anonymous whenever possible because genuine generosity required no spotlight. Months later, Graham visited the company's headquarters at Celeste's invitation. Instead of offering him a ceremonial award, she asked whether he would consider joining the organization's Ethics Advisory Council. She believed no executive training could teach integrity better than the life of someone who had practiced it without expecting applause. Graham accepted, not because he desired prestige, but because he wanted future leaders to understand that every business decision eventually reached someone's kitchen table, someone's frightened child, or someone's exhausted heart. Elodie flourished in ways her father had once believed impossible. She joined music lessons, discovered a passion for architecture, and often spent weekends sketching buildings that combined beauty with affordable housing for families in need. Watching her laugh freely again became Graham's greatest treasure. Clarissa's absence would always leave an ache, yet hope slowly learned to live beside grief instead of replacing it. On a warm autumn afternoon filled with golden sunlight, Graham and Celeste visited Margaret's resting place carrying fresh white lilies. Neither spoke for several minutes. The gentle breeze rustled nearby trees while distant children played in a park beyond the cemetery gates. Graham finally whispered that Margaret had nothing left to apologize for. Life had interrupted her promise, but love had completed it through her daughter. Celeste quietly thanked him for giving her mother peace she had long searched for. As years passed, people often repeated the story incorrectly. Some claimed it was about unexpected wealth. Others believed it celebrated corporate generosity. Those who truly understood recognized something much deeper. It was the story of a single act of kindness that refused to disappear. Compassion planted in one desperate season continued growing until it reached another generation, proving that goodness rarely ends where we think it does. Sometimes it quietly waits for the right heart to carry it forward. Before this story comes to its close, please leave a meaningful comment sharing whether you believe that kindness always finds its way back, even after many years, and tell us what lesson touched your heart the most. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. As Graham and Elodie walked home beneath another bright afternoon sky, they no longer carried the crushing weight of unpaid bills or forgotten promises. They carried something far more valuable, living proof that compassion is never truly lost. It may disappear from sight, become buried beneath years of hardship, or seem forgotten by the world, but a sincere act of goodness leaves a mark that time cannot erase. And somewhere, someday, another heart may finish the story that kindness began.